So this is the first day of the convention, and I gotta tell you, this is quite an operation. The amount of moving pieces, staff, location, security, programming that goes into an event this size is truly unbelievable. When you see events like this from home, it often feels like just a bunch of great speeches with a lot of fans in the audience, but it's so much more than that. So to get a little insight into how it all works, we have the pleasure today of talking with Nora Keefe, Director of Surrogate Communications for the DNCC. Welcome, Nora.
Thanks for having me, Lee.
Yeah, well, what an undertaking this is, right? I mean, Unbelievable size. I keep thinking that your entire team had to pivot 4 weeks ago with a new candidate, new ticket, new programming, probably new mission. How does an event like this even come together?
Sure. It's a lot of planning.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people involved. It's a lot of interdepartmental work, but taking off small bites of the apple so that we can make one big final event. And I will say, a lot of people think that we had to change our plans in the last 4 weeks, but we haven't. We have been planning for this for just about 2 years. We announced the Democratic National Convention was going to come to Chicago in April of 2023. And here we are, August 2024. And so it's a lot of time and effort. Throughout the time, we've changed our pilot, and that is it. We were building the plane all along, and really not much has changed on our end, but it is really great to have everybody descending on Chicago now. You can really feel the excitement that's happening here, and we're excited to have our first night of programming.
You can feel the excitement. I will say that. We've been here all day, and obviously in the background, we're hearing sound checks and we're hearing performers that are going to be here. The speaker list is incredible. I'm sure you want to tell us some of the people that we're expecting to hear?
We just announced our themes over the weekend for the entire week of convention, which is great. And they're pillared in really Vice President Kamala Harris's history and the future. We will learn about Kamala Harris. She will be reintroduced to the country, talk about her career as a prosecutor, as a U.S. Senator, as Vice President, and all the remarkable change that she has brought to this country, but also building a vision for the future. And so our themes are for the people, for our freedoms, and for the future. And that's what we're going to hear about this week.
Well, those are some good themes, I got to tell you, because that's exactly why I do the work that I do, for the people, for the freedoms, and for the future. And I think that the Harris-Walz ticket is really speaking to that, as would, honest to God, the Biden-Harris ticket.
Exactly.
Which I think is why you're saying we weren't reinventing the wheel. We were building the plane all the way along.
Yes.
And we just changed pilots. But I'm sure when you're doing programming, when you're deciding like who's going to sing, who's going to perform, there were probably some names that came in once the ticket had changed. Once we had a different pilot, there was a couple new people that came on board.
Sure. We're talking about the values of Democrats.
Right.
So it is a lot of the same people who perhaps would have been highlighted 4 weeks ago.
Right.
We're going to have the chance to honor President Biden. He took office 4 years ago and he saved democracy. That's going to be a key theme. You're going to hear from some of the January 6th committee on stage. We're going to talk about the contrast between the Biden-Harris administration, the Harris-Walz ticket, and Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And so really it's going to be a great chance to talk about, what's at stake in this election. But I think he's really going to make a great case as to why he believes Vice President Harris is the best person for this job. And so that's going to be really great. And we're excited to have him here and really give him quite a nice
give him his flowers.
Yeah,
exactly. He deserves it.
Yeah,
he deserves it. This is a real moment. And I think it's a real moment for America to see a leader that isn't in it just for themselves.
Exactly.
A leader that's in it for the people, in it for the country, and is willing to pass the torch because that's what's best.
Yeah.
And I think that we don't see that often, especially at higher levels of anything.
Yeah.
People want to hold on as tight as they can to the power that they have. And I think it's a great way to move forward into the future, saying, let's do this for a broader reason, a better reason, and let's let the next generation come forward, which I think is amazing. So we've talked about the first night of the event. What are we expecting from the rest of the week?
We have a lot of fun in store.
All right, tell me.
So each night of programming, we expect our freedoms to take front stage.
As they should.
Yeah. And one of the main freedoms in that regard is our reproductive freedoms. We will be hearing from some women across the country. We're going to be hearing a lot of real people stories.
Yeah.
People who know what changes would happen in their life if Donald Trump was president. Trump's abortion bans are going to be a key theme. What you see here and the contrast that we are building. And so I think it's important that we continue to talk about what is at stake here and how things would be different if Donald Trump was back in the office. And, as Kamala says, we're not going back.
Yeah. I keep saying the Republicans want to jam us into some time machine and take us back not only before civil rights and before women's rights, but in many ways before workers' rights, right? Yeah. They really want us back in the 1700s where women had very little rights and anyone of color knew their place and white, rich, straight men were on the top again. And it's just, I think most of us aren't interested in it. Yeah. And it's really nice to see a ticket that's saying, you know what, we're not doing that. We're going forward into the future. And there's going to be more people that have more access to power instead of just a select few.
Yeah. And you brought up workers' rights. Working families is going to be a real through line throughout the program. Yeah. We're going to be hearing from some union leaders as well to talk about the Biden-Harris administration and all the protections they put in place. Like, let's not forget 4 years ago when they took office, the world looked pretty different.
It did.
And so we've made an incredible comeback. And that is partially because of their leadership. And so we're going to celebrate those accomplishments tonight. And we're going to talk about what more we have to do.
Yeah, because there's always more to do. Yeah, you can never rest on your laurels. So if you're watching from home and you see these great speeches and you listen to, say, the head of the AFL-CIO, or you're listening to workers, or you're listening to women's stories, what's going on behind the scenes that most of us aren't privy to that you could maybe share with us?
Well, my job is to make sure the people who are on the main program, but also the people who are in this room are talking to people like you. And so we are really trying to localize our message and make sure that we are meeting Americans where they are. One of the fun and exciting things that we've done this time, it's part of the reason why you're here, is we credentialed content creators to come to the convention because we know so many Americans, that's how they get their news. And you are trusted sources and they know where to go to learn about the issues that are at stake here. And so that's one of the things I get to do is I get to do the matchmaking is what I say. I get to take people like you and put them in touch with people like me. We want to make sure that we are localizing the message from the main program to all the battleground states to reach voters where they are, to make sure that they know what's at stake and how to get involved and make sure that they go out to vote in November. And one of the fun things that we have happening each night here is that there will be an organizing component to this. We think that the convention here will really build on the momentum that has already started in the last 4 weeks and make sure that we are sustaining that momentum through November and to a Harris-Walz presidency.
Yeah. So it's a celebration, but also with action.
Exactly.
Very smart. And I have to say, as a content creator, being included here, I think it's a very, very smart move. Not just because people like, me, I get to come and talk to people, but because you really are saying there is a disconnect between the mainstream media and a lot of the American people now. That is not where they're getting their media anymore. We're not getting news at 7:00 that we all watch with Walter Cronkite anymore. Yeah. That's just not how it's happening. And you've said, okay, if people are going to get their information elsewhere, even if they're not getting their political information elsewhere, if you have a creator that has millions of followers, but they do makeup, or millions of followers and they do homes, let's invite them and say, come into this and see what you think and tell your audience what you think, because you haven't given me any talking points. You haven't told me what to say. You haven't said, do this our way. Here's our message. You're just saying, watch, see. And I think that gives a lot of respect to not only the creators and their audience, but to the American voter, because you're saying, come and see what we're doing. We have faith in our candidates. We have faith in what we're doing here. And we'd like you to see it and then tell your people, and hopefully they'll tell their people. And then we'll have a positive outlook on the election in November.
It's one of my favorite parts of working here at the convention is you can be really you can be creative. And if you talk to somebody who worked in 2016, that was when bloggers were all the hype.
I had a blog. I did.
And so we've evolved with the times, right? And so that's why we're inviting folks like you here. And we're really excited to make sure that you have a seat to be here, but also to make sure that people at home know exactly what we're doing here in Chicago and how important it is to the trajectory of our country.
Yeah, I think it gives real respect to the American voter and the American people to say, please come in, please see what we're doing. This isn't behind the curtain. We really do want you to be involved. I think that's so important. And thank you, Nora Keefe, for coming to join us today. And thank you for putting on this amazing situation. I'm so looking forward to the first night and the rest of the nights too. Thank you for making us believe that we can move in a forward direction, because I think the country desperately wanted to feel this level of hope.
This week is going to be really joyful.
Yeah. And honestly, we deserve it. The American people deserve it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, because it's been such a joy.